Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
First, a word from our sponsor. The Daily Compliance News for April 22, 2022, the Funding Secured Edition. And we begin with that story from the Wall Street Journal. Indeed, today, all of our stories come from the Wall Street Journal. As Elon Musk says, he has secured $46.5 billion in funding for his Twitter bid. 20-something of that is allegedly coming from Morgan Stanley, and the remainder Musk says that he is coming up with himself. So whether he does or doesn't, it's going to be interesting to see. But hey, he said funding secured, and we know what that means from Elon Musk. From the Risk and Compliance Journal, Richard Vandefort reporting, as the Ukrainian conflict continues, sanctions and supply chains have identified intensified shortages of key commodities. This could be a major risk factor for corruption. So if you haven't evaluated your risk profile, scarcity can cause corrupt actors to act upon their instincts, and you may need to reevaluate where or who you're doing business with. And there's a pretty significant series of examples of companies who have been involved in conflict-linked shortages. So Kara Brockmeyer is quoted in this article. So any article that quotes Kara Brockmeyer, you know, it's got some pretty good stuff. Next up, what happens with Facebook calls? Well, that question is posed from an article in the Wall Street Journal that Facebook Chief Operating Officer Sheryl Sandberg is facing internal scrutiny over 2 occasions where she pressed a UK tabloid to shelve a potential article about her then boyfriend, Activision Blizzard Chief Executive Bobby Kotick. In 2016 and 2019, Sandberg contacted the digital edition of the Daily Mail to get them to kill a story. So what happens when one of the world's biggest advertisers call? Well, you do what they say, and that's what happened with the Daily Mail. So it's going to be interesting to see. And our final story comes to us from also the Wall Street Journal, and it's a story about Carl Icahn, not really noted for caring too much except about money, but he is urging other big index fund managers who focused on socially conscious investing to support his proxy fight against McDonald's. He is upset about the way that pigs are raised, which become meat at McDonald's, and he wants to do something about his alleging of inhumane treatment of pigs before they are slaughtered. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.